tell you a little bit about myself. I work at Tehachapi Unified School District. We always know when we get people who don't know anything or telemarketers because they don't know how to pronounce that. So that's when I know I can hang up on someone. Tehachapi Unified School District is in California. It's near Bakersfield. We are, depending on the year, we are the only or one of two only first teams in Kern County. There are a ton in LA and there are tons north in Fresno, but there's only two or one in Kern County, California. And we've been there since the year 2000. I am the Project Lead the Way coordinator, and I am also our robotics team advisor. I have been the advisor for our team since 2008. So I've had 10 years of making our team run in a very rural community. Bakersfield and Kern County are agriculture and oil-based, but Tehachapi is at the top of a mountain. So we are a small town of about 13,000 people. The nearest institute of post-secondary education is 45 minutes away at least, and most shopping centers, malls, all that fun stuff are an equivalent drive. So for us, finding money and raising funds for our program is very important to keep it running and to being able to afford competitions and travel and equipment and everything else. So I'm going to talk to you guys about how to write grants, and I'm going to give you some advice. This is written as a how-to guide. It's a step-by-step, and as we go through the slides, you guys don't have internet connections. You're not going to be writing your grants right now, but you'll see step-by-step, and when you get the time to access these slides later, you can use them as a resource to help you going through your process. So first of all, there's my contact information. Here's the link for the Google Drive. As I was saying earlier, technology did not serve me well, so you cannot access this second. I don't know, there might be one PDF on there, but it's not updated, so you can try if the Wi-Fi likes you or if you can actually get a connection. But this is the whole presentation. You can access it. It'll be up there until Google kicks me out. So you have plenty of time to get on there and take a look at it and use it as a resource. Next, this is not about government grants. I don't write those. I don't like them. They're really cool because you think, wow, we could have this government grant and it would be awesome, but it's a lot of work and a lot of obligations, and I don't have time for it. If any of you guys are classroom teachers, you know you don't have a lot of free time to get this stuff done. So I'm not going to be talking about government grants right now. I don't have money to give you. If you came here and thought like I'd just be sending out the money, it's not going to happen. But I will tell you where to get some. I'm going to tell you what you need to know to fill out grant applications, how to prepare those, how we can find them, some tips and tricks that I do, and I will be happy to take questions and give answers or give advice. And if you guys have some advice that you want to share with each other, feel free. It's all about helping everybody be successful. And also, it doesn't hurt my feelings if you're like, man, I wish I had gone to something else, and you get up and leave. I will not be offended. I understand. Your time is valuable. So don't feel worried that you're stuck in this room if you've got a match to go to or another conference to pop in on. So what we're going to talk about today, there are community and crowd-funded grant programs, and I'm going to talk about two of those, Donorschoose and Adopt a Classroom. And then I'm going to talk about some small corporate grants that are pretty easy to apply for. They don't have a huge process, but they're not for a lot of money either. And then letter of inquiry grant applications. And those ones are, they're usually run by a third-party service, and they ask you a lot of questions, and they want you to justify why you're asking for money. So we're going to talk about those as well. So crowdfunding grant applications. How many of you have done Donorschoose? Awesome. Okay. Crowdfunding grant applications like Donorschoose and Adopt a Classroom ask you to say what you're going to spend the money on specifically. They want you to build a shopping list. They provide a non-profit interface. So if you are a public school or you're not a 501c3, you're just a community group that hasn't gone to that step, and you've got a teacher on board or an administrator from a school or something along those lines, you will be able to use Donorschoose or Adopt a Classroom as an interface for your donors to be able to donate to you and get a nonprofit receipt back for their taxes. So it's a benefit to your supporters to be able to give to you through their websites. So what Donorschoose calls it is citizen philanthropists, people who don't want to go and spend a lot of money donating. They've got $50 or $25 and they want to help a specific program get specific things, just people helping classrooms. They're most successful if you can advertise it a lot, campaign about it, tell people this is your program, this is what it's going to benefit, and encourage them to go to your website. If you just kind of set it up and leave it out there and don't advertise it, it's not that successful. You need to promote your program. And then they can be intimidating, but you can deal with this. With Donorschoose, you have to create a thank you package if you get your project funded. And I'll talk about all this. It's okay. This is just the overview. Okay. So the next one are the small corporate grant applications that we're going to talk about. Those reflect a corporate commitment to the community. So they're usually run at a local level and usually run by store managers or approved at a chain level. And they're tied to the core values of the industry, and we'll talk about that when we get to them. And they usually have an eligibility survey. So as soon as you get there, you're going to see like an intro page, and then it's going to ask you some questions that help them and you clarify if this is the right program for you. And then the letters of inquiry grant applications are big grant applications that take some time and thought, and they usually ask you questions like, what are your goals? How are you going to measure those goals? What's your long-term plan? And how does this benefit our community? So we'll talk about those as well. But those are the differences between the three programs. You've got community-funded ones that take some work to set up and say, this is my shopping cart, this is what I want. You've got small corporate-sponsored community grants that are low budget and they don't ask for a lot, but they kind of require a little bit of networking to make them work. And then you have the larger third-party letter of inquiry that asks for a lot of work up front, but they're a little more beneficial in giving you more money and being a little more liberal on how you can spend it. So we'll talk about all that, but that's your overview. Small amount, yeah. Okay, so the typical questions they're going to ask you in your grants, what are the goals of your program? And this is something that you need to think about too. It's nice to just go up to somebody and say, could you please give me some money? But it's better if you say, we want to grow our program to include more students, to be more inclusive, we want to add an FTC team to our already existing program, or we want a lathe. Whatever your goal is, that's what you need to communicate, because it's a lot easier to support something when you know why you're supporting it. Then how will you measure progress towards those goals? Again, it's helping the person that you're asking for money visualize your program. They want to know what your goals are, how are you going to get there, and how are you going to tell them that you've been successful or not. If your goal is increasing female participation, you're going to be measuring that by saying how many more girls are on your team. If it's about getting more kids to college, then you're going to be measuring the amount of kids that are getting into the college track classes at high school. It's about telling them what you're doing to monitor that their money is being spent in the way that supports your goals. A lot of companies like to have volunteers represented as well. They don't want to just give you money, they want their employees to believe in the program. So a lot of them will ask you, is there an opportunity for volunteers? And be honest, say yes, we would like to have your volunteers come mentor or work with our kids or give a presentation about what you do. Or say, well, this is kind of a small program and not right now, but in the future. Or please contact us. But they want to know if there's a way they can get involved, because that gives them some more insight into your program. And if their employees believe in it, it's a little easier for them to believe in giving you money as well. Has anyone else funded this project? This is not a trick question. They are not looking to say, oh, Walmart paid for it, I don't have to. Good money follows good money. So if they see that Walmart believes in your program, well, then they're more likely to believe in it as well, right? When you guys go and look for a restaurant, you're looking for ones that people approve of, right? You go onto Yelp and you're looking for stars. And saying, yes, this has been funded by other groups helps give that endorsement to your program. It feels counterintuitive. You're afraid to say, like, hey, we need money. Other people have already given us money. But it's okay. They want to know that other people support you. That's why we all wear the shirts that have all the sponsors on our backs, right? They want their name on your back, too. So things you need to know: if you're a school or an organization, you're going to need the W-9. If you're a 501c3, you're going to need your letter of determination for status. And then the project budget, or the budget for your school, you have to be able to show where finances go and how this looks in the big pool of what you're doing. And sometimes that can be tricky. Our school, I think, spends, $30 million or something a year. I don't even know what they spend. That's not what they want to know. They want to know what my robotics team's budget is. So I use that to explain to them what a grant looks like. Okay, so creating a crowdfunding grant proposal. So again, like I said, this slideshow is meant to be like a checklist of how we go through programs. So some of these slides are going to be like, why is she showing me this? It's okay. We'll go through it and you'll be able to refer to this back later. So first of all, Donorschoose is for teachers in public or public charter schools, and they've got a list of requirements for this because they only want to be supporting teacher classrooms. And they want them to be teachers who spend a certain amount of time with students. It can't be principals or administrators. It has to be done by teachers. So if you're not a teacher, hold tight. I have other programs that can go to non-teachers, but Donorschoose is specifically for teachers. It can include counselors, nurses, and coaches if they meet the criteria of spending a certain amount of the time with their students in an academic setting. But if you're not a teacher, you can still help teachers create these projects. So if you know a teacher that supports your program and they're like, I don't know how to do this, well, now you've got a resource and you can help them do it. Okay, so the other option is Adopt a Classroom. Adopt a Classroom does support private schools, and it does support religious schools as well. So if you're not a public school, this one works as well. There's a program with Farmers Insurance that also supports Adopt a Classroom that you could look into, and that link is on the website, or on the link slideshow. There we go. That link is on the slideshow. So with Adopt a Classroom, though, it's similar to Donorschoose, but instead of creating a shopping list, teachers request a set amount of money, and you kind of commit to spending that within the school year. And people donate to it, and then the teachers submit vouchers for reimbursement to Adopt a Classroom. So it's still a little bit of a challenge to run. There is some paperwork to maintain, but nothing's free. Every grant you get, you're going to have to do some sort of paperwork and some sort of accountability. Unlike Donorschoose, administrators are allowed to create Adopt a Classroom websites and projects as well. So back to Donorschoose. In Donorschoose, you have to have an account and you create an actual shopping list. So when you go on to Donorschoose, you have to build an account, and then when you want to create a project, you have to go on a shopping trip. They've got partners like Amazon and it's not Orchard Supply. It's one of those industrial suppliers is on there. I just can't think of the name right now. But they've got different partner sites. You go in there and you create a shopping cart that is uploaded straight to Donorschoose. It doesn't get sent to you. It's right within their system. And then you create a project around what you're asking for. You give the project a catchy title so people can find it while they're searching, and you talk about the project. Sometimes they have promotions like this one for the 3 Doodler pens, where you could get a 50% match from another organization just by creating it. So if you made a project, is that $1,300? Yeah. So if you made a project for $1,300 to get 3D Doodler pens, then that organization would automatically match any donations that got you there. So then your community would only have to donate $650 for you to get a bunch of those Doodler pens. So the challenge with Donorschoose is you have to shop for a specific item. The cool thing about it is you do that shopping, you create your project, you post it, and as soon as your community has funded it, they buy the stuff and ship it to you. You don't have to then collect a check and order the stuff and worry about prices changing or anything like that. It all gets processed on their end. So you do a lot up front to make sure you know exactly what you want, and then they will send it to you once it is funded. And the only challenge you have is after that to make a thank you package, which includes thank you letters from your students and some pictures of the items being used. Granger Supplies is the industrial supplier on there. So what you have to do when you first create an account with Donorschoose, agree with them, find your school, enter your details and your contact information, go through their tutorial. Their rules: you are a full-time educator employed by a public school or Head Start program. You spend at least 75% of your time working with students. You are not a principal, administrator, staff developer, substitute, volunteer, or student teacher. So if you are helping a teacher at your school site set this up, make sure you're setting it up as them. Don't say, like, I'm a volunteer with my team, because that's not following the rules. You have to help them set up their own account. And you are posting projects for materials that your students will use. This is not for a teacher computer or a new whiteboard. This is for student interaction. Then they have a big, long user agreement that says you won't submit a project for anybody else. You know that your friends are going to know that you got stuff, so don't go getting stuff for your own personal use, because your friends will know. All materials received by Donorschoose will stay in the classroom to be used and experienced by your students. That's the important part about Donorschoose. They want all of that funding to go directly to student experiences. So when you finish setting up your school, you're going to tell them what grade levels, contact information, and go through that tutorial. And project costs points. So what they do when you start your account is they give you some points, some credits, and then you spend those credits on projects. So projects up to a certain dollar amount cost a certain amount of points. So they're just doing that so that you don't go bonanzas making all these projects and not being able to maintain them right away. When you spend the points on a project, when the project gets funded, you earn back more points by giving the thank you letters, responding to your donors, things like that. So you build up a bank of points which help you make projects for more expensive items. Donorschoose does have a partnership with FIRST that you can use Donorschoose projects to pay for registrations. That is something that FIRST sends out every so often to remind people about, and you need to make sure that you're saying in there that it is for a FIRST team registration. The important part about Donorschoose is that they like to see, or they want to see justification for the cost. Because like I said, they're taking the money and they're paying it directly. So if you're doing it for registration, they need to see your invoices for registration. They want to see how that works, and you need to submit that bill to them. Donorschoose always adds 15% to your to the donations to cover their operating costs. So if you create a project that's worth $1,000, they're going to advertise it as costing $1,150. When your donors donate, they have the option to say that they don't want to donate money to Donorschoose. There's a little scroll down that says, I want to donate 15%, or you can go all the way down to 0. So if your people are kind of like, why would I give them money? Just show them where they can change that down to 0 and let other people support Donorschoose with the extra 15%. And then there are different match offers for different types of projects. Come on in and have a seat. Okay, so again, this is a step-by-step. So I'm just going to talk about this quickly. If you were creating a project, the questions they would ask you. So one of the first things they ask you when you are describing your project is, what grade level are your students? They want to know the age because people can search on Donorschoose. So if somebody has $100 burning a hole in their pocket and they want to support a program, but they only want to support 5th graders, they're able to search on Donorschoose and say, show me projects for 5th graders in science or in math or in robotics, and they can search for those keywords. If you follow that link on there, when you're looking at it, they'll show you some really nice examples of project explanations. They like to see a classroom picture, and you have to remember that this is on the internet. Internet safety is still important. If you're showing students, it should be a wide-angle group photo. You shouldn't be straight up in their faces. You should avoid showing locations. Even though they know what city you're in, you still should avoid saying your school explicitly or your classroom explicitly, because anybody can look at these websites. So you should still keep that in mind as you're generating photos and showing student work. Don't show clip art or an empty classroom, because your picture is trying to motivate people. You want to show something compelling that says, look, my students are engaged. This is an engaging atmosphere. Select exactly what you need by going shopping. I talked about that already. You must be able to document the expenses and provide information on how to pay. They do pay for class field trips and for people to come speak to your classroom as well. But you guys are looking for funding for programs, and yes, they do help with first registrations. So next thing you need to do, again, this is on a searchable website, give it a catchy title. Tell people what it is in 15 words or less so that they can see it and say, oh, I want to fund that, or I want more information. When you are explaining your project, make sure that you explain the purpose of everything that you've asked for. If you ask for a lathe and then you also ask for some skateboards, you better be able to explain why you asked for both. Don't just say, well, the lathe is really cool, and skateboards are for later, right? You need to explain everything that you've got in there, and say why the students will benefit from it. If it's only going to be run by adults, this isn't the place to be putting it, because we want the students to be learning from whatever you've asked for. And then you can select subject areas. Some grantors are looking for specific subject areas, and that includes applied sciences. I always pick that one. And then math or science or something along those lines. Once you submit it, the Donorschoose volunteers will read through it and make sure that it complies with all their guidelines, and if they see that you've missed something, they'll kick it back to you. And they'll ask you to they'll give you an explanation, and they'll ask you to clarify what you wanted. If they take longer than 5 days, it automatically posts. You don't have to worry about sitting around waiting for volunteers to get to it. They will get to it within 5 days, or it will be posted. As soon as you hit that publish button, you can start advertising it to your people. You don't have to wait for it to be published. You can tell your campaign, your volunteers, your parent organization that this project is out there, and they can already start pushing to donate to it. The projects are open for 6 months. If they don't get funded at that point, then they will contact all the people who donated and say, this project didn't happen, so what do you want to do with the money? Donorschoose will not give you the partial funding, because remember, they're there to buy it for you. So if it doesn't hit the money they needed to buy the stuff, the project doesn't happen, you don't get it. So then they contact all your donors and they say, it didn't happen, but you gave us $100, what do you want to do with that $100? And then your donors can say, well, give my organization a gift card so they can create a new project and use my money anyway. So the money isn't lost, but it goes back to your donors to figure out what to do with. After you get funded, they send you an email and you must reply and say, yes, I still want it. Then they'll send it to you, and you need to do the thank you package with the thank you letters and some pictures of the stuff being used. So that's Donorschoose. That's the community-funded ones. You know, there are other ones like GoFundMe where you can ask for money. They take money off the top to pay for the processing. There are a lot of other community-funded ones, but Donorschoose is nice because they buy it and send it to you. It's a little scary up front because you have to think about exactly what you want and build that shopping cart, and some people don't like to do that. But in general, it's nice to just be like, hey, that got funded, and it shows up at your door and you've got it. So next is corporate funding. So I've got 2 examples of that. My first one is Walmart and Sam's Club. So this one's really nice. It used to be a really long grant application to justify why you would like Walmart and Sam's Club to give you money, and they've made it a lot shorter. But this is their community grant program, and they will give you between $250 and $2,500 if they approve your proposal. And they do it in a 90-day cycle. So if you don't get funded in the first 90 days, they will pop it out and you can submit again. So you can apply to them 4 times a year to try to get funding for your project. It's reviewed by the management of the store that you send the application to. It's not a request directly to Walmart, it's a request to a Walmart store. So I'll show you the application. You get to pick each Walmart store that you're asking for money from. They will ask you qualification questions before you get into that grant application and make your account, and then after that you're just filling out an application. But you have to be able to answer, will you directly benefit the community of this store? There's thousands of Walmarts in the country. I'm from California. If I apply to a Walmart in Pennsylvania, I'm not going to directly benefit their students. So we're going for California. So you look for those local stores. What is the category of focus? Career opportunity or strengthening the community? Depends on your project. I always go after career opportunity because we're trying to help kids learn more about STEM. Are you a 501c3 or K through 12 public school? They just want to know. They're not going to bump you out for either reason, but you need to be able to answer that question. Are you trying to fund things Walmart doesn't like to fund? Every grantor is going to ask you that. They don't want to fund political campaigns. They don't want to fund individual student grants. They're looking for programs that support education. And if you want less than $250, don't fill out the application. Just go talk to the manager. You don't need to go through this if you're looking for a very small donation or a product donation.
Quick question.
Yes.
If you had, let's say, three Walmarts that were in your school district, can you apply
You can.
for each three?
Yes. Yeah. It's an individual site budget. So the link is written there. I don't know why it didn't turn into a hyperlink, but you guys can copy and paste that into your things. They support K through 12 public and private schools, charter schools, junior colleges, and even universities. Their grant cycle runs from February 1st through December 31st, and you will create an account on their program to be able to do that. When you go to their website, it gets a little confusing because there's a lot of different types of grant programs. And when you get there, they've got this cute little drop-down menu. You make sure you select community grant program, unless you're in Northwest Arkansas and want more than $10,000. So you select community grant program, you create an account, and if you're with a school, you need your school's NCES ID, which is available as a government database that just provides educational statistics. So every school district and school has an NCES number, and it tells them how the demographics of their school site. How many students, what their ethnicity is, how many males and females, grade levels, all that stuff. So it's a clearinghouse for information for companies. And it's public information. You can search for it on that if you've got a school. If you are a 501c3, you'll need your employee identification number. So these small grants are awarded at the store level, so you will search for stores in your region, and it will list all those stores for you in the order of proximity to you. So in our lovely rural community, our nearest Walmart is 25 miles away, which is actually a 45-minute drive. So then when you find the Walmarts you want to apply to, you click on that start button, and you can start your application. They ask you for the name of the program for which you are requesting funding. They ask you how much money you want to ask for, and they don't have to give you the full amount. If you want to shoot for the stars, ask every one of them for $2,500, and if they can't afford it, they'll give you $500. It's not an all or nothing kind of a thing. Are you going to be spending it on a location outside of the U.S.? That is one of their questions. And what is your focus area? And they've got a wide variety of focus areas, but one of them is education. So I picked that one because that's the happy one for me.
Quick question on the program name. Would you put your school's name, or would you put your school and the, like?
I put the school and, so I say THS Robotics Team. Let's see here. So then you have an agreement, and they've got this MOU that you can read, but basically it says your organization is what you said it was going to be. You will use the funds like you said you would. You won't give them to somebody else. You will keep records of your funds, which you all do anyway. You will cooperate if Walmart wants to publicize having given you money. So you'll let them take pictures or put it in their newsletter or whatever they want. You don't expect that they will keep giving you money, right? This is a one-time thing. And you'll follow the laws like you're supposed to follow the laws. So that's your MIOU. You give your little electronic signature that you agree to it, and then you submit it. And that's it for Walmart. And that's reviewed at a community level every 90 days. You will receive a follow-up email saying that it's been submitted, and you will receive a follow-up email if it is funded or if it is rejected. Again, this is a community level at your store manager's discretion. They meet every 90 days to look at all the grant applications they've gotten and to decide what they're going to spend money on.
Will it up your chances to be accepted as your grant being funded if you go to the store manager, talk to them, and also send the email?
Absolutely. If you submit online, personally, submit online, wear your shirts, go in, ask to meet to the manager, speak to the manager. I submitted this application. This is what our program's about. Can I answer any questions for you? Promote your program, because it is funded at a local level. They want to know where their money's going. And if they see you guys shopping at their Walmart wearing your shirts, you know, it's a little more promotion for them too. I don't know this for a fact, but I've been told by people who have families that work with Walmart that every Walmart location has $10,000 a quarter to give out. So I don't know how many people ask them for money, but it's a nice purse to be asking for a contribution from. And then once you do that, you get this receipt that pops up. At the bottom of it, it says click here to return to the home page. When you click there, you can go search for the next facility. It tells you the one you already submitted now exists, and there's the next one. So like you were saying about 3 Walmarts, they'll keep popping up. Sam's Club is also on there as well. I have no idea. I think that's a personal Walmart store kind of a question. They're 45 minutes away from me, so we've got 2 sides of the mountain, so I apply to both sides of the mountain. Not at the same year, no. So, but I don't know, because we're so far away that it's a little hard to make the case for them. I write in the thing that, look, we all come down off the mountain and we like to shop at Walmart because it's easy to get everything in one trip, but they've still got all their own local teams too. It's a little stretch for us with Walmart. Okay, so letter of inquiry. So this is the short one. When you've got a small company that wants to support your program but they don't have an online process, you still need to write them a letter to justify what you're looking for. And this is just a quick example, but it also gives you some ideas of what you should include in grant applications. So we had a local company that wanted to donate to us and wants us to send them a letter so they can justify it for their taxes. So this is an example. So I actually didn't write this correctly. So we haven't had any new equipment. My letter is actually based on robotics here. It says, thank you for your interest in supporting the Tehachapi High School Robotics Club. At this time, our most pressing need is to purchase new laptops for our programming team. Students on the programming team use industry standard software to program their robot, collect and analyze visual inputs, and create mathematical models of motion and motor behavior. Our current laptops are no longer capable of running the most recent versions of the software and are becoming unreliable in processing. To replace the existing laptops with new ones, we anticipate an expenditure of $2,500. Get to the point in your first paragraph. Why are you writing to them? I'm writing to you to ask you for money. This is why I need the money, and this is how much money I want. I know it feels weird, but you need to put that there. They only have so much time to dedicate to your letter, right? If you make it where they have to find this information, you're less likely to get a response. And with this case, we've already had that conversation started. I already said, would you be willing to support the team? And they said, yes, send me a letter. So it's there. Next part, if the funder never met me before, what should they know about my program? Why should I support your program as opposed to anyone else's? And that's what the next part of your letter should be about. Why is my program beneficial? What's going on? So, through the Robotics Club, approximately 40 students participate in the first robotics competition in which students design, build, program, and operate a large robot for a competitive, cooperative, international challenge. Our club enables students to learn many skills, including electronics, welding, soldering, finance, plan development, office software, project management, teamwork, and community networking. I know they're run-on sentences. I like commas. Developing these skills in high school helps prepare students for college experiences and professional careers. This is why my program's important. This is what we're doing, and this is why you should support us. It's your elevator pitch. Why do you do first? That's why we do first. Our students are learning these experiences to help them in college and in professions. And this is definitely something that when you really like how it sounds, save it. Because you're gonna be working on another grant, you're like, wow, I really liked how I wrote that. Save it so you've got it. And if you don't like how it sounds anymore, then you can tweak it for the next one. Don't always recreate. So, why is this pocket of money that you're asking for relevant? That's your next step on this letter. Go back to the details of the original funding request and give them some more information. Why do I want laptops? Students on our programming team utilize industry standard software to develop the programming to run their competition robot. They create code that can process visual inputs and direct the robot on how to react to those inputs. They build programs that enable them to control the robot remotely and to allow the robot to act autonomously, relying on sensors and timing. Through their experiences in the programming team, these students are developing skills that will be transferable directly to the workplace. That's why it's important. That's why you should give my students money. This is what we're working on and investing in these kids. Make sure you're spelling this out to people that you're asking for money from. Who will benefit from it? How is the money that they're giving you making a direct impact on your students? And then finally, drive your pitch home. Is it part of a larger project? Do you have funding from other sources that it can combine with? Is the money the only way that they can help you? And then if they've asked you for your EIN or your NCES number, you can add that in there. If I'm sending it to a corporate donor that I'm pretty sure is going to ask for it, I have it in my signature line, the NCES and the EIN, just so I don't have to keep remembering to put it in. So this is our final paragraph of that letter. Currently, the Robotics Club has 3 laptops that are no longer capable of running efficiently. In addition to the aged technology, the increased student interest in programming cannot be met with the current number of laptops. And then my pitch at our location, although we are supported with facilities, the Robotics Club is not financially supported by our school district. Our funding comes from the generous contributions of our community, businesses, and organizations. Your donations help to purchase this, your donation to help purchase this much-needed technology will help us maintain our program and would be greatly appreciated. If you have any questions about our program or this need in particular, please feel free to contact me directly. Give them the option to talk to you and call you. Remind them you exist. This isn't a cold call. This is saying, I'd like to have a conversation. Help our team, help me develop students. Invest in us, because this is the program that we're making. Okay, any questions on that? I know I'm going fast, but I have a lot of information for you. Okay, so next are the big ones. So these are the big letter of inquiry grant applications. I call them letter of inquiry because you're still kind of blind sending this out. But for example, we're a Lockheed Martin sponsored team. We still go through this process with Lockheed every year. So even though we're friends, we still send this. But even if you didn't know the company, you would still go through this process. My example here is the Lockheed Martin philanthropy. The Lockheed Martin funding is open to anybody. It doesn't have to be, people that are partnered with them. Anyone can access this resource and fill out this application. Applications are accepted on a rolling basis, but the earlier in the year, the better. Everybody has their fiscal calendar, and if you wait until December to ask for money, they've probably already spent it. This is the time to be asking for funding. A lot of them make these decisions before May, so you need to submit grant applications. In order to do this application and a lot of these letter of inquiry ones that have the websites that are running them, you're going to upload a W-9 or that letter of determination for a 501c3. Okay, so these are all the rules and restrictions for applying to them. And the important thing is to remember that you are equal opportunity. They do not give to private K through 12 schools unless the contribution is an acknowledgement of an employee volunteer service. So some companies donate in addition to, or in support of programs that their employees volunteer at, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. They don't give to home-based child care, individuals, professional associations, athletic groups, religious organizations, or anything to make yearbooks or souvenirs. So that's what all that small print tells you. If you're supporting a robotics team, you should be good. So screening questions, they ask you those. When you say, I want to create an account, they're going to go back through and say, to be considered for funding, you must be a nonprofit or a public school. Are you one of those? And you click yes or no. If you say no, they say thank you, you don't meet our requirements. And you go and you find somebody else to write a grant for. They ask you, you're not going to give it to any of the organizations we just said we don't want you to, right? And you say no, and you move on. And then they say, are you aligned with our values, committed to diversity and equal opportunity? And you say, I am aligned with you, yes. And then they say, okay, then apply for our money and we'll see if we want to support you. So you have to create an account with them, and this is one of those one-time processes to make your account, but you do need your IRS or NCES information to proceed at some point. However, you don't actually need it on this screen. You will need it when you submit later. Just the asterisks is to create your account. First name, last name, telephone, email, password, organization, and where you're located. But when you just set up your account, you don't need those, but you can insert them if you want to. Contact information for yourself, and then when you get and go back into the system, you don't have to do all this. They just give you a little checkbox that says, is this who you want to send the money to or align the information with? Okay. So next, they want to know about your organization. So they ask things like address, zip code, website. Some organizations will ask you for your social media links. Some of them want to know that you're going to be tweeting out or sharing out that you've gotten funding. They do want to know the income of your organization. And again, that comes to that question. Are you talking about your team, or are you talking about your entire facility? So make sure that when you are referencing your project and referencing your group, for example, for the Tehachapi High School robotics team, when I talk about that contact information, I'm putting Tehachapi High School robotics team. I'm not saying Tehachapi Unified School District, because those are two, yes, we are a subset of our school district, but I'm not touching that budget. I've got this little budget that I use for my team. So make sure you're clear so that you can be specific in these questions, because one of the parts that they're going to ask you is demographics later. So are you talking about the demographics of your school? Or are you talking about the demographics of your team? You need to be able to differentiate. So be consistent through your grant application. Focus on the team. Yeah, I always focus on where that money's going to be spent. So, do you get contributions from anybody else, and who serves on your board of directors? And then for that, that's kind of your debate, is do you want it to be your board of directors for your team, like your team president and your vice presidents, or are you talking about your school board, and you need to read the questions carefully for each grant that you're writing. So the next one, is there an elected or appointed government official affiliated with your organization? If you have a board of trustees that is elected, then yes, there are elected people affiliated with your organization. You just have to list them. It doesn't disqualify you. It's just paperwork that they need to be able to say, this elected official received money from us. It's part of their. if you're keeping your money for your team separate from the district, then I would say no. Your school board doesn't have to approve any donations that come to you, then you don't need to put it. Program title, what are you looking for funding? What is the amount that you would like to have? And again, same thing. You can ask them for the stars and they can say, I can give you 1,000. You know, it's their discretion as to how much money they're going to give you. If you go crazy with it, you might get eliminated right off the bat. If you say, please give me $50,000, they might be like, whoa, I'm not even reading that one. So try to be reasonable with what you're asking for. But also along those lines, they want to know what your goals and measures are. So you need to have the funding that you're asking for aligned with what you're telling them you're going to do with it. Yes. That is what I do, because if you just say operating expenses for such and such team, then it's a little vague. So I typically go in and I'll say THS Robotics Elementary School Outreach, or THS Robotics New Equipment, or whatever, and be more specific in that title. Yes. So I would start it with that, but then I would say what you're specifically asking for. Because we all know that our budgets are more than, a couple $1,000s. So, try to pick a subset that you can talk to specifically. So then they say, what's the purpose of the requested funds? They give you 2,000 characters. So that's a pretty good amount to say what you're going to be doing with it. And you don't have a lot of boxes to explain your programs. And again, this is right back to that other letter. If no one knows anything about your team, what's the purpose of this money going to? You need to be able to say that in here. Because this is going to someone somewhere sitting in an office that has to decide who's getting money from you. You need to be able to say why your program is worthwhile and what the purpose is of what you're doing. Make sure that you're including goals and measures. And if there are other contributors, it's nice to be honest. And it does help with a little bit of the competition between them. Boeing doesn't want to know that Northrop's doing something spiffy that they're not doing. They want to see, the what am I trying to say? Healthy competition, right? Travel and registration are still expensive things. And so long as you can explain, we need to pay for registration for our team because our students build these skills as part of it, or we want to travel and we want to defray the costs of that so more students can go and experience the benefits, you can still list it. It doesn't always have to be tangible items. And then if you've got marketing brochures or invoices or quotes, include those. They give you the opportunity to upload them. So you can show this is what we're doing, or these are the benefits and the outcomes that we've got. So then they ask if you are asking for something other than funds. Sometimes you could be asking for them to be doing volunteering, or if you happen to know that Lockheed is getting rid of a CNC mill and you really want them to give it to you, you could fill out this application and ask them for it, and that's what this is about. They've got this page that says, are you getting goods or services other than funds? But typically I just say no and put in a 0. So again, they want to know if there's an opportunity for their employees to support your program. So you're going to find the questions that say, is there an opportunity for one of our employees to volunteer with your program? So, yes, we like mentors, right? Especially industry mentors that can come in and work with our kids and show them what it's going to be like when they get out there. So yes, there is an opportunity for them to participate. And they've already got your contact information. And then they ask you again to certify your application. When you're sure you're done, you review it, and then you can submit. Okay, so any questions on that one? I know I'm going through them fast, but again, this is in my Google Drive. You'll be able to look at it, and you've got my contact information if you get stuck along the way. There are a lot of applications like this. So one of my first tips and tricks for you. Don't keep writing them from scratch. They all ask you similar questions. They're not the same questions, and you need to make sure you don't actually say Lockheed Martin when you're applying to Boeing, but don't keep writing them from scratch. I have a Google document that I put every question and every answer in so that I can be like, you know, I remember I saw that question and I liked how I said it for so-and-so, and I can pull it up and I can tweak it instead of starting from scratch and constantly thinking, I wish I remember how I said it. You've got it there. And you guys know, if you've got big programs that do a lot of things, you don't want to have to keep trying to remember everything you do and all the impacts you have. So keep track of it in a good common place. And now with Google Docs, if you're helping kids writing grants with your team, then all of that is in one place and you can all be referencing it. You don't have to have it on a thumb drive like ancient technology of 10 years ago. Let's see here. Create a database of the grants you've applied to or are thinking of applying to. I use a website called Smartsheet, which is, it's basically Excel or any other standard database, but it allows me to upload files. So when I submit a grant, I can save it as a PDF, and I upload it and I make it an item in that spreadsheet, so I can refer back to it following years. But things that I add in my spreadsheet to keep track of things, what's the point of the grant? What's it there for? If some grantors only support community outreach, then I put that there. Or if I know that they would support equipment, then that would be why I put in the purpose, who the organization is, when the grant is due, when I submitted it. That also helps me remember that I did submit it. The website to go to, some organizations have an invitation code that kind of pre-sorts your applications. So for example, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, they have places all over the states. So they've got invitation codes that send them to those regions to be reviewed instead of just their national database. Who my contact is, if I've got one, their email. Did I get the grant? Because if you keep building this database, you're going to have years of data that you're going to be able to track. Was I successful with this? Or am I doing something wrong with them and I need to reach out and figure out what I haven't done right? How much I got, and then for our group, we are a school program, so I have an ASB account and I have a district account. So for me, I need to keep track of which account it goes into so I can remember for my own bookkeeping and accountability. Along those lines, search for grants year-round. Every time you get a break or you're like, gee, I don't know what to do with myself, the kids are being good for a few minutes, search for grants. And even if you don't have time to fill out the grant, stick it into your database, throw in the website and the due date, and come back to it when you do have time. But make it a habit. There are some grants that are only available at certain times. I know I'll bring up grants later, but Best Buy, their grant cycle is 3 weeks. That's it, usually in May. But you need to get to their website, find out when that grant is opening, and be ready to hit them during that time frame. Otherwise, you're going to be like searching in August and you're going to say, oh, I forgot about Best Buy. So make it a habit to check grants, check your database, spend a few minutes searching for grants, and build up a database so you can apply. You're not going to get every grant. So the more that you apply to, the more practice you have writing, and the more you put your name out there, the more likelihood it is that you will get grant funding. Use your industry resources. So, Lockheed Martin, a lot of the defense industry, have internal grants as well. They have external funding, like the application that I showed you for Lockheed anyway, but if there's an employee volunteering with your group, that opens up another cycle of funding that they can apply for you. Lockheed Martin has that, Boeing has that, United Technologies Corporation has that, even Apple has that. Even the employees at Apple stores have access to that funding. So if you get those people working with your group, then they can be an advocate for you with their company, and sometimes it's as simple as emailing their human resources department and saying, hey, do we support FIRST robotics teams? Do we give funding to the FIRST program? and they can get directed to something as simple as putting their email in and getting funding into your team. I know that for Lockheed, I think it's $1,000 for FRC teams and $350 for FLL teams if they simply fill out a one-page web application as an employee volunteer with your team. And then also, a lot of organizations do donations to match volunteer hours. So if you've got an industry mentor, they should again check with their HR department, and if they log the hours that they are with your group, then they can submit that to HR or on an online website, and every quarter a check is cut for the equivalent of their hourly wage or some set amount that is also donated to your team. It's kind of like a match donation on their part. The employee is donating their time, so the company donates the equivalent of their time in cash. And then along those lines, matching gift policies. Check this website. It'll help you find companies that have matching donations. Verizon has it, Northrop Grumman has it. A lot of companies, if their employees show them a receipt or verify to them that they've donated money to you, then the company will also send you a check to match that amount. We do that at our fundraisers as well, because a donation to a 501c3 is tax deductible. So if they show a receipt from a fundraiser for you to their company, then that gets matched by their company as well. And usually they'll send you an email asking you to verify that that donation occurred. And then if you're not sure that you qualify for a grant, ask. Send an email. Send a short letter of inquiry saying, this is our program, this is what we benefit, could we apply for your grant? If they tell you no, oh well, but if they tell you yes, that's an awesome thing, and you can write a bigger grant application. And then make sure, you don't want to waste your time, right? We're all busy. Everything has to be balanced out, so read the request. Read their information, make sure that you do qualify, because you don't want to spend all that time filling out an application and then have them say, sorry, we don't fund that. And the biggest one on that is computers. The AIAA, American Institute of Aeronautics and Aviation, I think. It's a small club, but they have an annual $250 or $500 grant, but if you ask for computers, they won't fund it. And I forgot about that. Asked for computers, wasted my time. But, those things happen. So make sure you remember what you can and can't ask for from any funder. Okay, and then, by the way, this used to be the Walmart application, where the Walmart application is now saying you exist and please give me money. It used to be, tell me about your program, why is your program relevant, a whole bunch of other stuff, and they streamlined it very nicely to what I showed you guys before. But again, be very clear and specific. Don't ramble all over the place. Give them the point. Why are you asking for money? What's it going to do? What's the benefit? If they can see your vision and relate to it, then you're more likely to get that funding. But you need to be able to paint that picture for them, encourage them to give you the funding. And then why is it relevant to why is your cause relevant to that particular funder? Right? When I write to Northrop or Boeing or Lockheed Martin, I'm telling them about the aerospace industry and how all those aerospace engineers are retiring, and they need more aerospace engineers, and we know where they all are, because they're all hanging out with us. So invest in them, right? That's what I talk about. When I'm talking to Walmart, I'm telling them that all our kids shop there, so they should invest in them, right? So try to make sure that you're tailoring it to the audience that you have. Also, grantors want to see success with their money. They want to know why they should invest in you. What have you done? What successes have you had with funding in the past? Are you able to be a good steward of their money? They've got a lot of options. People are asking them for money all the time. Why should they give it to you? Make sure that you're clear on that. Tell them about the successes you've already had. Tell them about the additional success that their money will create. Make a direct connection between the money and the people. And show them that other people believe in your program as well. It's not just them. You're not just a voice in the dark. Everybody wants to support your program, so they should too. because it's an investment in the future. Make sure that you are selling it when you are writing these letters. Okay, so I've talked enough about how to do it. Here's all the fun information. How do you find grants? And there is no magical place where everybody says, we've got money, come ask us. It doesn't happen that way. You have to search and you have to look, and it is a challenge. So I've got some websites up here that you can go to, and again, on the Google Drive, you can click through all of those. So some grant clearing sites, those are ones where somebody made a web page at one point and linked a bunch of grants. So you can click on those and search for STEM grants, and you can find grants. Sometimes, though, they don't update them at the fastest speed that you'd like. So make sure that you're there, you visit every so often, but you search lots of places. I know everybody thinks that we should all just have one source for all this information, but it isn't that way. You have to search a lot and look around. So those are some good grant websites that I have found to help me get through. Some good words to use when you are doing a Google search: STEM grant application, STEM grant request, corporate grant request, STEM grant program, philanthropy. The corporate programs usually say community investment, something about community when you're doing your searches. If you go to this site with Wells Fargo, that's actually a listing of the grants that Wells Fargo manages. So you can go there and they're listed by the name, and then they tell you what states they apply to. So you can take a look at those directly and see if any of those apply to you. JP Morgan has a similar one right here that you can pick on. And Google Grants is an interesting program that I haven't tried. I haven't figured that out. It's a partnership with them to increase your website traffic and generate funding somehow. It doesn't apply to me. It does not apply to my public school, so it doesn't work, but I'm putting it up there so you guys can check it out if you're interested. And then GrantSpace is another source. So the ones below that, the subscription services, it's up to you if you want to spend money on finding grants. I try to get around that. The Foundation Center, you can search and they'll show you a portion of a grant, but then you have to pay more money to see it. But once I've seen the portion, I just search for that and see if I can find it on my own. Sorry, we don't have that kind of money to spend on subscriptions. But they are good places to get some ideas, find names, get what information you can out of them, and then search for more information outside of those services. So these are ways to find them. Be creative in your searches. You are trying to find money, and as you go through and you start seeing common language, use that language to try to search for more grants. Okay, so here are some grant applications. There's the link for the Walmart grant. Gannett is a regional based on a newspaper, but you can be able to find those. Lowe's Toolbox for Education, Honda, Coca-Cola, Best Buy. Don't believe that opens in June because I think it opens in May, but check it out and find out. They should tell you. Union Bank, the AFCEA already closed, but you can add it to your list for next year. Okay, everybody got their picture? Okay. There's that AIAA one, don't write for computers. SPY is an organization on optics and photonics. So again, if you can write a grant where you're saying, look, we're really using vision systems and we want to be able to get some cameras and some computers and some filters that help us run vision better, you can write that grant for them. You may think like, what are they going to give us money for? But if you write the grant and you sell your case, you can get funding. I got $2,100 from them for optics and photonics once, so they will fund groups. You just need to tell them the story of why they should give you the money. Target field trip grants. Target will give you up to $700 for transportation costs if you can justify a field trip. The application is in like August, and they don't award it until November, and then the money doesn't come around until January. But if you're using it to justify a trip to a competition, and you say, you know, we're also going to stop at such and such museum on our free time or whatever, there's some money to help you get there. So that one's not that hard to fill out. It's one of those easier applications. And it doesn't, you don't have to fit the $700. You don't have to fit your transportation in $700. That's just the maximum they're going to give you. The W.K. Kellogg Foundation, Halliburton, Dollar General, all of those are good grant applications. If you are a 501c3, the banks don't like to give to high schools, but they like to give to 501c3s. So these are all the people that won't give me money, but they might give them to you. Okay. And Intel also is a 501c3 only. Okay, so questions, and there's my contact information. Yes? Can I go back one? Did you not get your picture? Okay, hang on. Beginning of April? Wow, okay, so Best Buy has moved their grant to be open right now. So you guys need to check out the Best Buy grant. Okay, she says April, you say May 1st. Check it out. Make sure that if you are within 25 miles of a Best Buy, you can apply to Best Buy's grant. So check out the Best Buy grant. So usually around this time is Best Buy, a lot of the defense contractors, people that have an annual budget, but then they kind of award around October is when they give. And then between August and October is when you'll see a lot of robotics grants come through. So a lot of the NVIDIA, National Instruments, they start popping up in the fall. And that's also when you can hit on the employee grants as well for the robotics programs. Yes, yeah. So for our robotics team, we don't have an official, because we're within our school district, our school district's fiscal calendar goes from July 1st to June 30th, or whatever. I'm not good with calendars. But really, for my team and the way our grantors run, I call March 1st the beginning of our next year. I want to have the entire year paid for by the time I get to March, and then I start building for the next year in March. That's how I need our calendar to work. Because with the ASB programs and writing purchase orders, you need to have those all submitted for anything before March 15th anyway. So I set up my budget so that our fiscal calendar goes from March 1st to February 28th, and I run it that way. It doesn't align with our school, and it irritates our treasurer, but that's what I have to do. Because if I get money on March 15th, it's too late to pay for a competition because I had to have the PO written 2 weeks ago. So, yeah.
So when you want to, with specific items, actually ask them, like you have,
Yes. Yes, you can. It's nice to have a volunteer who's watching for those things for you, but you can write in your grant applications, I'm looking for a router, or, if you are surplusing an old lathe or something, we would like to be in consideration for that. So yes, you can write those in your grant applications. Other questions? Was this helpful? You're all kind of sitting there like I did the fire hose thing, and I'm sorry because I know I did. It is an excellent opportunity for you to be writing grants. So my recommendation is that you work with your teacher because you need an accountable person to have their name on it. But for your experience, you should write the grants with their guidance. What we do is we do the Google Docs. So I have a folder that's on my Google Drive that says student submitters, and we share everything in there. And then they're writing and I'm reviewing and able to give them comments and feedback on how they're doing it. But in the end, you need a responsible person for the money and for the contract to be the named person as the contact. But it'll be great for you because then when it comes to writing for college and scholarships, you already know how to sell things. Absolutely. Go ahead. So do we have individual mentors for writing grants? That's me. That's me. Go ahead. Okay, ask me that again. It's not you, I can't hear you. No, I have similar students that help me look at it. There are some that come up in the summer or that I know the organization I've been writing grant for 8 years that I'll do, but I want the students to be involved.
I know Donorschoose has a mandated thank you process. Do you have something like that with other schools?
We try to generate an annual report that we will send to the contact that gives us the funding. So with Northrop Grumman, I have a specific person that contacts me when we get funded or that we don't, and I will send her an email with our annual report that has some pictures, says what competitions we went to, what did we do, what was our outreach, what were the benefits to the students, just something to say, here's what you contributed to. Not a lot of them ask for a summary of their grant. If you go for that one for vision and optics, they do want a report at the end of the year saying, how did the funding from that grant go? What were your objectives then? So it depends on the funding. That's a good question, and I would do something similar to what we were saying about saying for us, the THS robotics team program, and have the program title say it's about your team, but it's still going through that community fund or organization. Okay. Did you guys have a question? I keep seeing a hand movement over there. No? Okay. Other questions? Come on, I'm ready. Okay, what? So that's a challenge, and the best way to do it is to ask that person to help you identify. But it is hard. We had, with Lockheed, our long-term contact retired, and it was a stretch to try to figure out, okay, who's going to be the next hand-me-down? Like I said, we're 45 minutes from even those employers. So it took us a while, but also we've been a Lockheed team for a long time. So they kept us in their system until we firmed up that volunteer and a new contact. But yeah, transitions with volunteers and transitions with contacts are a challenge, and the best way to do it is to ask them to give you that progression. They do not require it. Yes, we happen to have one, and it's nice because they do usually ask you in those grant requests, do you have, or does an employee from our company work with your team? Or are they involved? And it's nice to be able to put some names down to show that you've already got that connection. Granting is a bit of a networking thing. You want to show them that you exist, you want to validate all your programs and sell what you're doing, and you want to build a connection so that they can see how your students can interact with their program either now or when they graduate. What is the benefit? Why are we all working together? So you're trying to paint that picture. Yes? And that's a challenge. Like I said, I've been with our team for almost 10 years now, and I can give you this presentation now, but I had to deal with all of that then too. How do you maintain a network and build a network? And it takes time, and you need continuity with that. That is your leadership, maintaining the continuity. And so right now you're struggling with maintaining that leadership to maintain the continuity. Anybody have any advice on that? Thank you. Yeah, and try to find an advocate. You know, it doesn't have to be a teacher, but someone who can help you maintain that continuity. The institutional learning in first is so important. You know, just even knowing how to deal with being at a competition, it's tough if everybody has to learn that every year. If you've got the ability to have someone who can be a constant, and I'm sorry it's not easy, but when you do get someone who's got it in their blood and they're excited, then they'll help you maintain that. Yes, gentlemen. Please do. I am happy to help. Like I said, I've been with this for 10 years. I have students who have graduated and who are doing great things. All of you guys have the potential to do amazing things that didn't even exist 20 years ago. And I want you all to succeed. That's why I'm giving this presentation. If you need help, email me. I'm happy to help. Other questions? Yes? So I gave a list of some different grants that you could find. But to get local companies, like smaller businesses that aren't going to be on there, it's about publicity and a little bit of cold calling. And some of the best ways to do those would, and if anybody wants to chime in, you can, but doing expos of your program and just advertising those in the paper, if you can join your Economic Development Council or at least get a visit to them, a visit to the Rotary, your civic organizations, and get out there and show all the great things you do, you'll have people coming to you and asking you about your program. And the first step may be asking them to talk to you, saying, you know, hey, we saw that you have this technology in your company, could you come give a presentation to our team? And you start building those connections, that's how you start getting local companies to sponsor your team. It's all about connections and building a community.
Are you guys a 501c3 organization?
Our team is not. We are run through our school district. So any check that's written to us has to come to our high school or our district.
So what is the problem with being a 501c3 and also being part of the school district?
We are, our team is 3 years old, and just this year we 501c3. And we don't see any problems at this point because the school district can support them with direct purchases and direct funding. And then I hold all the corporate funding that comes in. We can direct where our money goes instead of having to go through and getting approvals on where we can spend it if it were only through high school.
There's not really a lot of downsides. It just depends on your.
We need the funds to hire the attorney to draft the paperwork at the beginning. We got that donated by one of the parents at our school. And then annually you have to file tax returns, basically. Not tax returns, but filings with, in our case, the state of California and a federal postcard.
Yeah.
Basically, I go online and say we brought in less than $50,000 and I attest to that.
And getting the 501c3 status opens you up to other funding that you wouldn't get for just being a school.
And people are likely to double their donation because it is tax deductible again.
Right.
So like when we charge our membership fees, several of the parents are like, oh, it's either $500 after tax or I'll give you $1,000 and it doubles your donation.
Yeah. And we do the grant writing, and then we have a community fundraiser each year where we do a silent auction, and items are donated to that, and that's another thing that a lot of companies like Build-A-Bear and American Dolls and things like that only donate to 501c3s. So I can get Disneyland tickets, but I can't get an American Girl doll to have at my silent auction. So if you're a 501c3, you could have more. You want to volunteer with our team? Yeah, exactly. Yes. We are not allowed to go into debt. So I stress a lot. I don't have any gray hairs, which is amazing. But because we work with our school district, we cannot go into debt. Our district will not approve one of my purchase orders unless I have the money in the account already. So for you guys, do you have,
General, like, I have a company credit card or a 501c3 credit card. I don't use it as a credit card. I pay it off every purchase. So I never purchase a large item on debt. You want the money in the account.
wow. Has anybody here had that issue? Like I said, we're not allowed to spend the money unless we've got it. And that's another reason why I set our calendar to end at March 1st, because if I don't have the money then, we're not traveling. So I have to build our account in that manner.
Our rookie year, we made it to the championships and we did not have a dime left in our account. And we had the principal went to the school board and say, they qualify, will you do an emergency money? And they did it that way. So I would totally advise against going into debt to travel to the place. There are other ways.
Yeah. And that is true. I didn't talk at all about petitioning your school board or other organizations to fund your team as well. I mean, there are school sites that provide large contributions.
501c3 at that point. We were just through the school.
Mm-hmm.
So she was back for us through the school board at that time.
That's cool. Yes?
On the very first slide, you have a link.
For my Google? Okay. I'm sure there's a faster way to do this, I'm sorry. It's only 62 slides, we're almost there. Nope, there it is. If you get really desperate, that's my office phone, but I can tell you that I'm probably only in once a week. Also, if you send me an email and I don't respond, please send it again. I am not trying to ignore you. It's just the way my email works. I don't even want to look at it while I'm here. It's filling up as we speak. So, but yeah, if I miss it, just send me another email. You are not nagging me. I want to help you guys. So if I haven't responded, just send me another email. You've got it there, and you've got our team email as well comes to me. So you've got 2 ways to contact me. Okay. Other questions? Okay. If you want to stick around and ask me questions, feel free. I really appreciate you guys coming to this session. If I can help you at all, please let me know. Thank you.